Please welcome Amit to deliver the theme address, The Rise of the Impact Economy.
Thank you. Thank you. Hola. Hola. Almost 300 years ago, in 1730, a disquiet arose in a peaceful, princely state of Rajasthan. The Maharaja of Jodhpur, Abhay Singh, commissioned the construction of a grand palace, which would need a fair amount of wood. He ordered the soldiers and woodcutters to fell the trees from a nearby forest where the villages of Kejrali had planted cinerarias in abundance. Those of you who know deserts, cinerarias can survive droughts, can survive 5 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius temperature swing. They give shade, add to soil fertility, and have medicinal value. As the soldiers approached the forest, Amrita Devi, a village woman, exhorted her fellow villagers to save the trees. So in the first act of environmental activism in India, the villagers rushed to the forest and hugged these trees. On that fateful day, 350 villagers were hacked to death. Plato wrote on the ill effects of deforestation. William the Conqueror passed a law to protect game animals. Benjamin Franklin, he protested against waste dumping, and Mahatma Gandhi in India, he warned us about the excessive urbanization. But we have forgotten all that. And Amrita Devi, haven't we? I've just landed here from New Delhi, which is distressingly one of the most polluted cities in the world, with PM 2.5 particles at 500 micrograms per cubic meter, enough to hide the deep blue skies behind a dark gray curtain of poison. The schools are shut in Delhi right now. How many Greta Thunbergs must we create before we wake up? I can't help but think that in this pursuit of progress, we have pursued collective amnesia, collective disremembrance. Let's not forget the sacrifices of those who gave up their present, like Amrita Devi, for ours. Our predecessors left infallible wisdom about living in harmony with nature. Rachel Carson's exhortations of Silent Spring, Wangari Maathai's mission of planting 1 million trees, Chico Monday's life struggle and death in protecting the Amazon, they are reminders that we must prevent this collective disremembrance. Let's not forget that there's also clear and present danger on the social front. The fragile fabric of our democracies is under siege from growing oppressive inequalities. From Occupy Wall Street to Arab Spring, from Extinction Rebellion to Yellow Vest, from Hong Kong and Lebanon, now even Chile, citizens are in disbelief that governments can ever deliver social, environmental, or economic justice. But let's also not forget that throughout history, this is when mankind has found a way from darkness to light. The Industrial Revolution's mass production made good affordable. The tech revolution connected us in unprecedented ways. The creation of European Union ended a cycle of war across centuries. And they were all brilliant paradigm shifts of the mind by people in flesh and blood like those in the room today. And today, together, we embark once more on a journey to change the system on its head. We are innovating to create the impact economies, which will be nothing less than a renaissance of purpose. The impact economy will embed impact as a deliberate decision driver alongside risk and return in every business, investment, policy, and consumption decision. And this alone has the power to ensure that the whole economic system works for the people and the planet, and not just a government spending or philanthropic investments. If there ever was a silver bullet, impact economy is it. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to share our vision of the impact economy with all of you, which was a project, a working group project for myself and 10 of our colleagues, a working group I had the privilege to chair. 6 of my working group members are right here in the room. So Ronald Cohen mentored this group from Israel. Myri McKay is here, who convened this from UK. Jed Emerson and John Simpkins are here from US. Elias Masilela is here from South Africa. Roberto Randazzo is here from Italy. And our project manager, Sukanya, stands right there. So thank you all for your contributions and thought leadership. I'm going to make 3 points today. 1, that the world is indeed changing for good. And it is the creation and the result of several evolutionary and revolutionary forces. 2, that the impact economy embodies social, environmental, and economic justice enshrined in every constitution but rarely achieved. And 3, that you all have the power to shape, build, and create these impact economies in your countries. So let's get started. First and foremost, as we think about the impact economy, I want you to go back thinking, this is not something that happened in a year or a decade or even 2. Our research in this working group showed that evolutionary forces over several decades and revolutionary forces are coming together to make this impact economy imminent. And there are 5 key evolutionary forces I want to talk about. 1, societal values are moving from individualism to commons as we prioritize use value over exchange value. Markets are moving from information asymmetry to symmetry due to technology, which makes information ubiquitous, absolutely necessary to create equitable markets. 3, consumption is moving from passive to responsible and led by the millennials. A recent study showed that 15% of millennials prefer sustainable brands vis-a-vis 7% of non-millennials. 4, poor are moving from fringes to focus as the world and even the Pope have rejected the trickle-down theory that absolute economic growth will eventually bring the poor out of poverty. They are rightly demanding political and economic inclusion. And 5, workers are moving from informal to formal economy and being given their just rights and just benefits. And these 5 evolutionary forces, which have happened over this last century, are coming together with 2 revolutionary shifts that makes this impact economy possible. And these are purpose of business and purpose of investment. The purpose of business is changing from shareholder to stakeholder. It may have been taught in business schools for years, but now you can see it in practice. In August 2019, this year at the G7 meetings in France, you would have seen 34 CEOs led by President Macron and Emmanuel Faber of Danone commit $1 billion to inclusive growth initiatives. At the same time, in Élysée Palace, 34 fashion companies representing 150 fashion brands committed and signed up to deliver 0 greenhouse gas emissions. In US, 181 CEOs at the roundtable signed saying we have to move away from shareholder focus and ensure we are serving all stakeholders. The purpose of business is changing for good, as is purpose of investment. Responsible, sustainable, and impact investments have moved from 0 in year 2000 to 30 trillion in 2018. $90 trillion has now signed up to principles of responsible investment. And we are figuring out that in terms of purpose of investment, we are able to today move from divergent to convergent economic goals, which is we can do good and do well together, a subject a panel after me will shortly discuss. These 5 evolutionary forces and these revolutionary forces are creating an unstoppable momentum to ensure impact economies come to life. So what are these impact economies? And if you wanted a dashboard to monitor whether or not your country is tracking towards this, I'd request you to put 4 dials on your dashboard of business, consumption, policy, and investment. Let's start with investment first. For almost $30 trillion to move in less than 2 decades must have made people think something else I think they are thinking that impact does not impair profits. In fact, impact can drive profits. Why else would people like Ray Dalio and Larry Fink, who are poster boys of capitalism 1.0, be advocates of reforming it? In business, 50% of Fortune 500 companies and almost 100% of the companies on FTSE 100, on CAC 40, on BSE 100, on JSE Top 40 are reporting on ESG or sustainability. I will not be surprised that, triggered by SDGs, we have 100% of corporations on the planet putting out an impact report by year 2030. In consumption, the ethical and sustainable consumption movement is showing that 66% of all consumers in the world and 75% of millennials are ready to pay more for sustainable brands. And lastly, on the policy front, we are seeing that several countries are setting a scorching pace. Regulatory reforms like 90-10 solidarity funds in the US, green investments in Holland, opportunity zones in US, social investment tax relief and social value act in UK, profit with purpose companies, as well as new kind of social forms in South Korea, as well as Thailand. They are telling every other government impact economies are possible and will steer our nations towards it. So what can you all do? Our group identified 3 sets of measures that are already underway and that can catalyze the impact economies. First one were around structural and policy issues. Creation of new corporate forms, profit with purpose companies, B Corps, regulatory and financial incentives, new instrumentations like outcome funds and impact bonds. All of these are structural issues, including creation of large wholesalers that would help us catalyze the impact economy. Second were behavioral and attitudinal issues, where we look at change of fiduciary duties, impact measurement, the missing piece of the puzzle, impact integrity, creating a clear and concise but a simple narrative which makes sure that impact becomes a people's movement. And finally, and most importantly, our working group is recommending a constitutional initiative. We believe the Impact Act must become the new social contract. Let's not forget that throughout history, it was legal enactments which solved social problems for posterity. Wasn't it 1876 when Emancipation Proclamation ended slavery? In UK, child labor was largely ended in the beginning of 19th century by Factories Act of 1833 and the Education Act of 1870. In US, it was Rachel Carson's activism which led to Earth Day and creation of the Clean Air and Endangered Species Act. We believe similarly, we will have to create an Impact Act which mandates that every organization must annually measure and report its impact. So I'm going to leave you with this. I try to make sure in my life I don't forget what came before. As we are hosted by our Argentine colleagues today, it would be remiss of me to not remember a great Argentine host, and let me see if I can get her photograph up, Victoria Ocampo. Yes, the great poetess of Argentina. Amongst others, Victoria Ocampo inspired our first Nobel laureate for literature, Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore came here as a poet almost 100 years ago at Villa Ocampo, 30 kilometers north of Buenos Aires. We sent Argentina a poet, you sent us back a painter. Rabindranath Tagore had a little bit of personal transformation here, discovered his own version 2.0, just like all of you today are helping us transform capitalism and build capitalism 2.0. So thank you, Argentina. I will conclude with this. It is important that we think of collective remembrance and collective action as we close this summit over the next 2 days. Let's not forget the sacrifices of all those who came before us, because we truly stand on the shoulder of giants. Let's also not forget that we have always known that nirvana lies in transcendence, in our case from capitalism 1.0, and that history has shown that mankind has again and again done it. And third and finally, let's not forget that we will only reset the world when we reset the social pact, which speaks to all those people out on the streets around the world. We will have to rebalance liberty and equality. We will have to rebalance individualism and what is there for the commons. And only then, in a spirit of interconnectedness, can we truly help achieve the impact economies. This is a vision worth aspiring for. And as I end this, I want you to remember that never before was impact economies as relevant, and never before was the solution so close in our grasp. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the age of Impact Rising. So welcome to Impact Rising 2019. Thank you very much.